Hey, welcome to the Happy Rant podcast. I am Ted Cluck, joined as always in studio by Barnabas Piper. And Pipe, I get the privilege of doing something this morning that we did a couple of years ago that people seem to really like. And that's where two of us just kind of interview each other. So I'm going to be interviewing you today. I suppose in the future, maybe you'll interview me or Ron will or whatever, and vice versa when we can get we can get Ron back on the road and back in comfortable environs for him.
I feel like he has not been bringing his sort of A-game energy to the podcast, and I think it's the lack of Hyatt place. It's the lack of Hyatt place in his life is really what it is. I'm pretty sure.
Dude, I can hear the despair in Ron's voice when he's at home.
Yeah, he's just despondent.
He's despondent. He's glum. He's a little bit depressed. So we gotta get our boy back out on the road. We got to get him retreating, and then he can be himself again. So we're gonna put off the Ron Martin interview episode until that time. But Pipe, I'm happy to have you in studio today because I have a whole bunch of kind of mid-career things that I want to ask you, including. Should we do promo reads? We probably should. Yeah, like this is a real app. So
yes, that's right. We should do that, which means I should have probably been prepared. So our first sponsor is Noah's Event Venues, as we have talked about before. So they're a company. They're actually based out of Utah, I discovered. I didn't realize that because they have locations all over the country, so I wasn't paying attention to where they're from. I just find anything based out of Utah pretty fascinating. I don't really know why. It's kind of a non-existent place in my mind.
I agree. Yeah. Question on that. Have you ever been to Utah?
I have. No, I was thinking maybe I had flown through the Salt Lake City airport, which only sort of counts because airports are twilight zones. They're not really part of a city.
Exactly.
So I don't think I have. Although I would love to go. It seems fascinating.
Yeah, it really does, man. The whole Mormon thing and all the affluence and it seems like it would be a really interesting place to visit. And dude, odd to me that Noah's Events Venues is from there, but I don't know. I feel like what are the odds that they're Mormons?
That could explain why they have places for Sunday worship services, because don't Mormons meet on Saturdays?
Yeah, so they can work on
wait
Sundays.
A minute, is Noah's Event Venue renting out Mormon temples and we're just calling them event venues?
Oh my gosh, that would be the ultimate that would be the ultimate sort of meta joke against evangelicals. But
that's to be clear for our sensitive listeners, we do not believe that to be the case.
We don't.
That was
We're just
a coincidence that we ran with.
This is just wild speculation at this point. So,
which is how media works these days, but please disregard what we just said for the sake of actually trusting this sponsor.
Yeah, and for the sake of our relationship with the sponsor, which is lucrative. So, Pipe, continue telling us about these fabulous events venues.
So, Noah's Event Venues, they have locations all over the United States that are designed for organizations to use for whatever sort of event, or to lease on a long-term basis for regular Sunday morning worship. So they have an entire setup for churches who are looking for an easy-to-use modern venue. And when I say modern, don't think like corrugated metal on the walls. I just mean up to date. They're all sort of neutral, classy with, there's wood, there's windows. You can dress them up or dress them down. They come with all of your needs. So microphones, podiums, projectors, TVs, Wi-Fi, stage lighting, even Apple TVs, which that's nifty for people into such things. They have plenty of parking at each place. So it's not the kind of thing where you have to go, figure out metered parking or send people away or have 30,000 people in orange vests pointing different directions. They have cafe spaces and nursery spaces. So basically it's a full service church venue. So if you are a church plant, a church looking to start an additional campus, not you, Mark Dever, we know you're not into that, or a church who's just looking to move because you've been leasing a space and you've outgrown it, or it's crummy or whatever it is, go to noaheventvenue.com/church. So Noah, as in Noah and the Ark, noaheventvenue.com/church. Check it out. They have, I think they're in somewhere between 20 and 30 major cities around the United States. So if you're in any major metro area, there's a good chance you are included in their locales.
Dude, has there ever been a famous Noah since, like Noah from the Ark? Like a truly famous Noah? Because that's the example you always give. And after you gave it, I was like, man, could he be using any other Noah there?
I mean, I guess it could be like, as in Joachim Noah, but...
Oh, yeah, Joachim Noah, the world's greatest women's basketball player, according to Bill Simmons.
Yeah, early 2000s WNBA fans would be real into that. I'm trying to think, is there... The only other... I mean... His dad was a famous tennis player, Yannick Noah.
Yannick Noah, yeah. Anybody with the first name Noah, though.
I mean, Noah Syndergaard pitches for the Mets. They call him Thor because he has long blonde hair. Although I guess he just got that cut, so that's interesting. But I mean, we're kind of scraping the middle of the barrel here. It's not bottom of the barrel. It's not like it's not like Carrot Top's name was Noah or something. But it's pretty mid-tier celebrity in the Noah department.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So parents, just take caution before you name a kid Noah. Not a ton of amazing track record there, but
it's just like if you name your kid Josh, as we've discussed before, he'll never be a good quarterback. Might be a good actor, never be a good quarterback. Exactly,
and he'll always be 12 in my mind.
That's right.
Piper, do we have a lucrative relationship with a book publisher this week?
We do have a lucrative relationship with a book publisher because IVP Books has come into our corner, and they are our corner man. So they're fully supporting us in this podcast. And the book that they're highlighting this week is Disruptive Witness. We mentioned them a week or two ago. That is the book by Alan Noble, who we had a lengthy discussion about Alan's ethos and appearance as a
the
literature
aesthetic
professor
of Alan Noble.
Ronnie had some sort of subtweety things to say about his online presence.
Dude, he did. That was fascinating. That was almost like as hard as I've ever heard Ron come at somebody. You know what I mean?
Ron has some buttons that can be pushed.
He does.
And apparently Alan Noble has pushed one of those buttons unbeknownst to him.
Interesting.
Because it's nothing moral. It's nothing egregious.
No,
it's just a habit of Alan's, and particularly in how he is presenting this new book, because I think it's his first major book or his first trade book publication. So he's a scholar. He's written a ton of articles. He's well published. But in terms of trade books, I don't think he's done one before. So he's very excited about it. And
sure.
And his presentation of that has pushed a button for one Ronald J. Martin. So I say that to let listeners know that there's nothing behind the scenes dark here. This is just cranky Ron. Honestly, I bet it wouldn't have bothered Ron if he was in Jupiter, Florida or something.
Yeah, that's true. If he was in Jupiter, if he was on a retreat, he'd have just been Alan's got a book coming out.
Yeah, I like Alan. Yeah. He's got a well-trimmed beard, and it's a good book.
Yeah.
So book,
but the fact that he was in Ashland, that darkens everything.
It sours him on other people's. Just sours him. It's just
exactly.
Sour Ron in Ashland, which is a bummer because that's where he lives.
We got to get our boy out of Dodge Pipe.
Yeah,
soon.
No kidding. He needs to sabbatical in Ashland and live on the road.
Exactly. We'll work on that. So tell us about Alan's book.
So Alan's book is called Disruptive Witness, and it's a book that looks at sort of how our modern age has distracted Christians from who we are supposed to be, what we're supposed to be. So everything from sort of introspective spiritual life to public witness. And he particularly looks at how our addiction to technology, that's my word, not his. He talks about use of technology has sort of deflected us from it's deflected us from fruitfulness, more or less, because it's constant distraction. So it pulls us away from relationships. It pulls us away from spiritual reflection, from repentance, from the kinds of human relationships that can bridge barriers and gaps between people. So he's a scholarly level thinker, but the book is not an academic book. He brings it, any Christian who's willing to engage a little bit of brain power will do just fine with it. I read it and had a chance to endorse it, and I thought it was a really helpful book. Fair warning, it is convicting. So if you're not into conviction and you just want a pat on your back, this is probably not the book for you. But it does challenges sort of the passive habits we have of perpetual interaction on social media. Not an issue for you, Ted.
Yeah, thankfully.
The way that we interact with news, the way that we interact with other people as sort of like they are digital beings, not human beings.
Dude, actually, none of those things are an issue for me. So I think I'm in the clear on this one. I may read this one for a pat on the back.
I was going to say, you're the 1 out of 4 people in the United States. It's like you and 3 Amish people who can read this for just a pat on the back. The rest of us need to read it as a corrective. So, really helpful book. It's called Disruptive Witness by Alan Noble. It's available now. The cover is sort of psychedelic. It's like Joseph in the Technicolor Dreamcoat sort of thing, but with a medieval image of Jesus. So
I'm looking at it. It's actually seizure inducing. So if you have epilepsy or any of those issues, you're going to want to probably get the Kindle version.
If you scroll past it too fast, it actually swirls and causes headaches and nausea. So
if you play it backwards, it actually has satanic references in it. So just don't do that. You'll be fine.
Yeah, it almost looks like it's supposed to be a hologram, where you turn it one way and it's one picture, you turn it another way, it's another picture, like the old school baseball cards.
But those were sweet, dude. Yeah, those are so sweet.
So this is like you got like the stationary picture of Jesus, but if you turn it, it's like Jesus on the cross. You turn it back, it's Jesus staring, Jesus on the cross. So I don't know if that was the intent, but that's the effect.
Also, like those baseball cards, if you remove this cover from the book and put it between the spokes of your bike, it sounds like a motorcycle. So just a little added benefit from IVP.
Do bikes still have spokes? I feel like all the wheels are the big like plastic.
Dude, they are. They're the big like plastic mag wheels now, man. It's not fun. Yeah. You remember the spoke thing, though, the motorcycle thing with the baseball card. Yeah.
Yeah, I would always do it with like Chicago White Sox cards because I hated them. Except for Frank Thomas, he was the exception.
Exactly. Big Frank, man. What a great player. Great old baseball name.
A lot of Ozzie Guillen ended up in my bike spokes.
I think a lot of Ozzie Guillen ended up in a lot of people's bike spokes. But Piper, this is not Happy Rant Sports. This is the Barnabas Piper episode of the Happy Rant podcast. And I'm excited to talk about some of these things. And since you mentioned Alan's excitement over his book, that kind of fits into the wheelhouse of the sorts of things I want to talk about with you this morning. And I don't know. I see these kids, man, these kids like Alan, and they're super pumped about their book, and they're tweeting about it, 55 times a day. And I don't think that bothers me like it bothers Ron. To me, Pipe. So I'm not jealous of this kid having by the way, how old is Alan Noble? I say kid, he's probably like our age.
Yeah, he's about our age. It's hard to tell because he's balding and has facial hair, and those are the two biggest like white dude tricks to change your age. So absolutely. I'm 35 and I look like I'm 22 because I can't. Yeah. I have a full head of hair and I can't grow facial hair. So my guess is he's about 35.
Dude, also, he's an academic, and academics get all kind of wan and pasty because they never go outside, and they just lead very, like, monastic kind of bookish lives. And with academics, you can't really tell how old they are. But anyway, this kid's super stoked about his book, man, and I'm not jealous at all. I don't get jealous about people releasing books anymore. If I'm tempted to get jealous about anything, it's how excited he is about it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like... It's clear that like he believes in it, and not only does he believe probably in the content of the book, but I can tell he's still like dreaming big dreams about books and publishing. And my question to you, Barnabas Piper, is when was the last time you felt that way, and what did you feel that way about?
That's a good question.
Yeah, thanks, man.
I don't have the personality to be as impassioned about things like that. So I look at it this way. So let's keep using Alan as an example, as long as he came up. So IVP, you're welcome. Your sponsorship has now become a topic of
a whole episode.
This is the IVP episode. He, during the writing process, for example, he would put up like screenshots of some of his work or his word count. He was using an app that would track his progress. He'd set daily goals or weekly goals or whatever. Yeah. And I was intrigued by that because that has never been my MO. No. Like nobody looks at the work until I'm done. Nobody, like, word counts don't matter to me. They matter to me only in as much as a publisher has them in a contract, and so I guess I should ballpark it. And then once the work is available, I put it out there, and my MO, especially now, is kind of like I did the work, and I'm kind of tired of the work, so talking about all those things. Now, that's gotten more and more the case, so I've done 3 books, and so the third one, I was pretty burned out. The first one, I was much more intrigued and interested in promoting to some degree. But what I look at and I go, okay, so one of those is like, an author like Alan is doing that so that people are engaged and encouraging him and invested in the process throughout.
Yeah.
I, on the other hand, do the exact opposite thing, and maybe that's a self-protective measure where it's what if I put all of this out there and nobody cares?
Exactly. Yeah, no, I know it, man. Or what if I put like a screenshot of a page out there and somebody takes umbrage with it or whatever, then I got to deal with that.
There's a typo in line 6.
Dude, which is the kind of thing people say on the internet. Like, hey, I hope you got a good copy editor because you misspelled, Rudy Giuliani. And it's like Judas Priest. This is a screenshot of a draft.
Yeah, it's a working document in the most literal sense.
Exactly.
So I think for me it's a twofold thing. One is more positive, one is more negative. On the negative side, it's a sort of an insecure, self-protective thing. Yeah. If I'm not excited about it, or I'm not sort of hanging on people's response to something, then it doesn't matter if they don't respond. Which, in our level of publishing, or at least my level of publishing, a lack of response is pretty normal.
Yeah,
there's
for sure.
a small number of invested people, and the vast majority of the world is like, I have no idea this thing exists. Yeah. And then the positive side though is I don't like self-promotion. I don't want to be a self-aggrandizement type of person. And now we're going to remove Alan from the conversation because I don't want it to sound like I'm saying that's what he did.
Right. But publishers do eat up what he's doing. Yeah. Like what he's laying the groundwork for a second book deal, even if this one doesn't do great. Like, even if he only sells 4,000 copies of this, the publishers will be like, man, but look how he engages with his audience. And like, so he's doing some good things there. Things that like you and I probably aren't willing to do.
And the threshold for first book is very different than the threshold for other books because normally the idea is to increase your sales, your presence over time. So if you create any sort of ripples with the first book, you get any sort of reviews from the right publications or engagements with the right podcasts or whatever, like you've got a foot in the door and you will get a second book. Yeah. What I discovered is that works well for 2 books. With the third book, only one thing matters: sales numbers.
Yeah. They're like, we're tired of we don't care how charming you are when you come to visit the publisher. We don't care how like cool to work with you are. Show me the money on
the track record is the track record at some point. Yep. So I have a book proposal in the works right now, which has been a version of it has been shopped around to some publishers, and a couple of them have asked, they're interested and they've asked for more. They're like, and we need an actual writing sample, not just a proposal. And I was like, I have 3 writing samples. They're each 40,000 words and published.
Exactly.
But anyway, I'll do the work for them. But this proposal is being considered largely on the success of my first 3 books, or lack thereof, not on the potential and intrigue of me as a rising author.
Yeah, that's right, man. Yeah, the conversation really changes after you've put several books out there and people kind of know what they're getting with you. And so I've been a bad radio host. I should have further set this up. This is the Barnabas Piper episode of the Happy Rant podcast. Piper is an accomplished author in his own right, author of The Curious Christian, author of The Pastor's Kid, great books. And Piper, what can you tell us about this new book proposal? What is it? What is it about? How is it similar to and different than your previous books? And just tell us about it.
So the book working title is Expecting Happiness. So not to be confused with like what to expect when you're expecting. That's not the book I'm writing.
What to expect when you're expecting happiness.
That's right.
That would be a good title.
But as the title would suggest, it's a book about expectations and happiness and how we have a tendency to misplace or misemphasize both things. So it's since it's in the proposal stage, it's hard to say exactly what it is. My intention with it, though, is to sort of take like an Ecclesiastes kind of tone on American and Christian pursuit of happiness. So Ecclesiastes being the, I had everything in the world. I was the wisest person in the world. I had every woman in the world and all the riches. I had complete peace, and all of it was vanity. Mm-hmm. But then also kind of this level-headed, but there is good in doing your work and being grateful and those kinds of things. So that's sort of the premise of it. And the idea behind it is just I just see people manically pursuing happiness and never finding it, because I think they're constantly disappointed in the happiness they get.
Dude, why is that? Why are they disappointed?
Because they're expecting the wrong things. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's sort of at least that's the conclusion I've come to. It's when you go to a phenomenal restaurant, if you expect it to be a phenomenal restaurant, you are almost inevitably going to walk out of that experience wishing for something more than what you had. Now, it might have been near perfection, and you might go, that was spectacular, I only wish. There'd be like a nagging sense of, is there something more? Yeah. Whereas if somebody calls you up and they're like, hey, let's go out to dinner, and they're just like, I heard this place is good, and you go in and it's a total surprise, you're blown away by how good the food is. Same restaurant. It's because you expected dinner with a friend, and instead you got a transcendent dining experience.
Right.
And I think that's the way we treat almost everything in life. And so, we've made jokes on the podcast before about how people are trying to turn everything into an adventure. They're expecting something out of a new job or a new car or, a new house. Like, we're starting on this grand adventure called home ownership. I'm like, that's actually a grand expense.
Yeah, it's a grand expense, and it's something everyone does at some point.
Yeah, unless you live in like New York City or Los Angeles, where you just rent forever because homes cost $1 billion or don't exist. Yeah,
exactly.
So those are it's just sort of looking at that manic drive towards fulfillment, happiness, whatever it is. But then on the counterpart is it's a response to the sort of psycho-Christian hedonists as well.
Yeah.
The ones who are like, because I think people who pursue Christian hedonism in the wrong way end up being both unhappy in this life and in some ways disappointed in God, because they expect the wrong things from God too. The idea
Dude, help me out. Like, unpack Christian hedonism for a minute. Like, what is that?
Okay, so sorry, I throw that phrase out there as if it's just a known thing.
No worries, man. No worries.
I grew up in those waters.
I've definitely heard it, but I'm not sure I could articulate it. I don't think I know what it means.
So the phrase that it turns on is God is most glorified in us when we are most satisfied in Him. Essentially, meaning God is the primary and sole source of joy. And which I think theologically, we would probably agree with.
Sure.
Like, yes, that is the source of all significant, lasting joy. The problem is that it gets turned into a sort of psychosis, and people are like, that is the only source of happiness and joy, which means that there's not a happiness in just sort of like the jokes that can be told and the burgers that can be eaten and the football that can be watched and the music that can be listened to without sort of a like, isn't it amazing that God made this thing? And you're like, you know what? You just lowered my enjoyment by about 18% by saying that. So so the idea behind the book is to sort of find the middle ground between the hedonists and the Christian hedonists, if you will.
Yeah.
And just to kind of find that level ground, and also just help people realize that, like, the Bible tells us in this life you're going to have trouble, and that's a promise. So just deal. Learn how to deal.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great message, man. And I do. I think social media has maybe ratcheted up our almost nonstop hunger for like an epic experience. Every meal, every trip, every date, every whatever has to be epic and transcendent. And I don't think people felt that way before. I just think you kind of lived your life and you were thankful and happy in the moments that you were happy in. So not to get like total deep dive existential here, but what kinds of things make you happy? Like, at what points in life do you experience real happiness of the sort that you're going to be kind of like scoping out in the book?
The times that I think I'm at my happiest are when I've set the bar in the right place for an experience. So if friends from church getting together and we're all just going to hang out some Friday evening and somebody's going to throw some meat on the grill and there's going to, hang out, food, drinks, company. And my expectation is I like these people. I'll go have a good time.
Yeah.
Then you know what happens? I have a good time and I'm able to come away and I'm genuinely thankful for friends and for good company and, the laughs and the conversations. If I go in thinking that it's going to be, the greatest Friday night of this month or of this year, it's going to feel flat.
Right.
And this, I think work is probably even a better example because it's inevitable. Like we have to work. And so if I'm expecting that my next promotion is going to be an arrival point, I'm going to be massively disappointed in whatever that job is because
for sure.
Because it comes with busy work and it comes with drudgery and it comes with Mondays. And so, but if I look at it and I go, there's provision, there's people I like to work with, the cause and the purpose of the work is meaningful. And so, and then yes, there's all of that other frustrating stuff too. Collectively, I can go, I am happy in my work. It's
sure.
I was having a conversation with somebody the other day, this actually plays into kind of the idea of the book. And he was like, do you love your job? And I was like, no. He's like, why are you doing it then? I'm like, because I'm thankful for my job.
Something.
Because I appreciate my job. Because I like a lot of things about it, and it's a good thing right now. Like this is a thing that God gave me, and I'd be stupid to turn it down because I wasn't like doing backflips every Monday morning.
Exactly.
So I think those are contexts where I find just genuine happiness. Is did I set the bar right for this thing that is a really good thing, but not a life-altering thing.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense, man, for sure. And I think like I'll be interested to read this book because one of the stumbling blocks for the cynic, which I am, and I definitely put myself in that category. You tend to think that you can kind of game this whole thing by saying I'm just going to set the bar so low I'm always pleasantly surprised. And, I'm sure that's not what you're arguing for in the book. So I will look forward to reading that, man. I hope it gets picked up and I hope you get a deal for it.
Well, and I think the other failure of maybe it's just modern thinkers, Western thinkers, is that we almost always tend to go either or. So if something is not an elite experience, then it was a waste of an experience.
Then it sucked. Yeah.
And there's a little bit of that in the set the bar so low that you can't be disappointed because like when you set the bar low, you also kind of inevitably set the ceiling low.
Yep.
Like you sort of lower the whole range of enjoyment way down. And so you're not disappointed, but you're also kind of like, it was fine. And that's sort of your engagement with life. And so it's finding that the tensions that we don't like to live in where you can appropriately set the floor of expectation. Like, this probably isn't going to change my life and it might even be mediocre.
Right.
But set the ceiling such that when something is exceptional or enjoyable or whatever, you can say, I really enjoyed that and have the range, rather than just sort of minimizing your own ability to enjoy things.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense, man. Totally makes sense. So, Pipe, in light of this new book proposal, which after we get off the air, you're going to be heading out into the 94-degree crisp autumn weather here in Tennessee.
Me and all like the drooping pumpkins.
Yeah, grab a shawl, man. Don't catch a draft in that brisk autumn weather. But you're going to be going to write this book proposal. So my question to you is, to be fair, there's a lot of like kind of personal issues couched in this for me. Like, do you have ambition anymore? Would you call yourself ambitious? Because I don't think I do. And I don't mean that in a like, oh no, I'm glum and depressed sort of way, because I'm definitely not. I don't get excited about these projects anymore like I used to. And I wonder where you're at on that.
I think that fits with the kind of the expectation range thing we were just talking about, because a super ambitious person is they've set the ceiling so high. I'm going to change the world. I'm going to write a New York Times bestseller. I'm going
this
to
book
whatever.
is going to change my life. It's going to change readers' lives. It's going to launch my career in this incredible way. Yeah.
And so for me, like I've never been an incredibly ambitious person in that way, but over time, I think I've become a more accurately ambitious person. Mm-hmm. So if I found out that this book had no impact on anybody, I would be bitterly disappointed.
Sure.
Like, what a waste of my time and energy, and I completely misfired.
Yeah.
But if I hear from readers, 2-3 times a month for a few years, and they say, "Hey, read your book. It really helped me think about this differently," or "I had a conversation with a friend based off of it," or "We went through it in a group," that feels like a success to me, because I'm writing for people to be helped in some way, shape, or form. If I was writing a story, I would want them to be entertained. I would want them to say, "I loved it. I loved the character. I loved the plot," whatever it was. So ambition has changed shape for me, where I have lowered the floor to, I don't expect massive sales. I'm not going to be on the front table at some Barnes and Noble. I'm not going to be interviewed on massive media channels. It's just not going to happen for me. Barring something insane. And that's okay. I'm not disappointed by it not happening. But I do expect that my work will impact readers, and in a way that changes how they think, how they see things, gives them a fresh perspective, because that's the kind of writer I want to be, is somebody who helps people go, I never saw it that way before.
Yeah.
Or I never saw God that way before, or the world, whatever it is. And I do expect that to happen. So I guess I'm ambitious towards that, but it's just I kind of know my lane, and I'm not I'm not ambitious for commercial success.
No, absolutely. I totally get it. So one of the things that I think I miss the most about being young is getting excited all the time. And I used to get excited about all kinds of things, like an article getting published, or getting a book deal, or even like submitting a book proposal, or, going to a ball game or whatever. And to be clear, like, those are still things that I enjoy. I would say I enjoy all those things at some level, but I no longer really get excited. My question to you is, do you get excited anymore? And what do you get excited about?
Yeah, my threshold for excitement has diminished greatly. I think much more in terms of enjoyment than excitement now.
Okay.
So, because maybe that's a personality thing. Maybe it's just an energy thing. Life is tiring. I have 2 kids, full-time job. Like, there's just a certain amount of energy I don't have. But the other thing is, it also fits with that. Excitement has generally led me to disappointment in life. You get excited, which means you set the bar too high.
Yeah.
And then you get there and you're like, that concert was fun, but like, our seats weren't that great, or the sound system was subpar, the guy doing the mixing was a little off, or, we couldn't get close enough to the front, or whatever. Instead of just going, I think I'm really going to enjoy hearing whatever band play. And so I don't get excited anymore like that. Yeah. I get excited when I'm surprised, know? So that's part of the reason I love sports. Yeah. Sports is one of the few things that's unscripted and can surprise you every single time. So the guy breaks out of the pack and runs for a touchdown. Like, you did not see that coming. That was a surprise. And so we jump out of our chair and cheer, Case Keenum hits Stephon Diggs down the sideline of the playoff game with no time left on the clock. I was excited. I mean, it was just because it was an utter shock to me.
Right. Yeah, you can see a transcendent performance every time you watch a sporting event, and so there's the potential for that. And you get excited about it for sure. That's interesting, man. I think, things in life that can deliver that are fewer and further between.
I think that's inevitable as you get older, because when you're younger, there are more things that are surprises because you've experienced less. Like, you just have less of a track record of, this is how life works. And I don't get excited about, is the publisher going to get back to me about my book proposal today?
because you know they're not today or in the next 3 months.
Yeah, because I'm in the biz. Like I know how publishing works. I know that there's a high likelihood the first several are going to say, good enough, but we're going to pass on it. And that's not crushing to me. It's just sort of like, okay, well, it'll land somewhere eventually.
Sure.
And so, like the excitement is about the unknown. The more you know, the less excitable you are.
Absolutely. Dude, so what do you do with, and I feel like I see this a lot. I feel like I see people our age and older, like kind of generating artificial excitement, or maybe the excitement is real for them. And if so, I'm intrigued by that. But I don't know. There's almost like a tinge to me of sadness to it, to see a like middle-aged and older guy getting super pumped about his book proposal that he's putting together. It's like, dude, let me just tell you what this is not going to do for you. But I don't want to do that because I don't want to be like a wet blanket. I don't want that to be my role in life in perpetuity, But like, what do you do with these guys? And dude, a lot of it speaks to what we talked about on the episode that we're pushing back a few weeks. These kind of leadership guys that get all jacked out of their mind about this thing or that thing. And it's like, what do you do? What do you do with that? What would you tell that person?
Well, it's hard to know how to interpret some of that excitement because we live in a time where if you're not using superlatives, you're not saying anything meaningful. So for me to say, I expect it to be a pretty good time, sounds like I'm saying it's going to suck. When in reality,
that has like glum connotations.
Right. Even though what I said was the opposite of it's going to suck. So the only way for me to say something that registers is to be like, it's going to be epic. It's going to be life-changing, which is why leadership gurus sound insane because they're like, this will change your organization. I'm like, you know what else changes your organization? Like the calendar. Just give it a day.
That's true.
And so true. I think that's part of the challenge is interpreting people's excitement. Like what's the conversion rate of your language to reality?
That's fascinating. Yeah.
Because I know people who are like they're sort of the everything is awesome type, and I'm like, but they're not insane. And so there has to just be a conversion rate between their level of like peppiness and reality. And so they're seeing things similarly to me. They're just expressing them differently. And I'm a little bit more of an even keel flatliner when it comes to excitement. But then but like the middle-aged guy with the book proposal, if it's a first-time writer, I thoroughly expect them to be just jazzed out of their mind because that feels like a massive accomplishment. And in one sense, it really is. Getting published is a big deal. I also expect them to have a realization moment somewhere within 6 months of publication that they go, oh, this didn't really change my life. It was a cool accomplishment. But dude, and this is the reality is not that I'm a different person now. It's just that I did a thing.
That's something that nobody prepares you for. You know what I mean? And maybe they shouldn't. I mean, maybe there shouldn't be a guy to say, hey, look, this probably isn't going to like change your life in any considerable way, but enjoy it, definitely enjoy it. Definitely like do whatever level of promotion and public excitement you can muster, but don't expect it to like really change your life or change your career or whatever. I mean, I think that message delivered in the right way could be really empowering. And, I think that's probably what you're shooting for in your book, man, which is, again, why some publishers should pick it up. So Christian publishing industry, if you're listening, and I know you are, pick up Barnabas Piper's book so that I can read it and be less glum, if nothing else.
Or at least be realistic about be glum about the right things.
Be glum about the right things.
The Titans.
Absolutely. Dude, right. I can be glum about the Titans and their uniform and their marketing, although they're actually playing well, which is kind of a fascinating thing.
That is. But again, this isn't the sports podcast, so we'll leave dumb things the Titans have done for a segment on another show.
Absolutely. We can do entire episodes about that. So, Pipe, my question to you, and maybe this is hard to separate from like the way you grew up. So I'll let you answer it in whatever way you want to. But if you hadn't chosen this path, like, being a writer, working at Lifeway, doing what you do, like what else would you have done? Like, what else could you have seen yourself doing? And it's funny because a lot of my friends are pastors, and we talked about this on the other show that we'll drop in a little while. But, you know, a lot of these guys, like, they truly think, you know, if I hadn't become a pastor, I would probably be the president, you know, or I would probably be like,
Yes.
I would be Winston Churchill, you know, I would be leading men into battle. And they sit in their little, you know, their little reading nooks at night, reading Winston Churchill biographies, thinking, you know what, doggone it, I'm a leader of men. And I just happen to be leading a church, but if not, I'd probably be like a 5-star general. But that being said, Pipe, like, how do you see yourself, and what would you be doing if it wasn't this?
Yeah, the irony of that description you just gave is so deep, because it's like, with the Holy Spirit, I lead a church of 500. Without the Holy Spirit, I lead the free world.
And by 500, I mean 75.
That's, well, 500 members. It's an SBC church. So
exactly. 500 members, 75 who show up.
That's right. And we count our baptisms on a pegboard.
Exactly.
But what would I be doing? Communication, writing, speaking, those kinds of things are a thing. I probably would have gravitated towards something that enabled me to do this. So I could, like, sports broadcasting would have been something. It's something I was always intrigued by. I loved sports talk radio at like 9 years old. Back when radio was a thing, and podcasts weren't. Now I love sports podcasts. And so I think I would have worked hard to get into that. I think a side of me was always intrigued by the law, so getting into being a lawyer, but more courtroom lawyer than, like, I'm not a read and write lengthy briefs guy, and I think that's what would have stopped me there. Is law school probably would have stopped me, because I don't like school very much. And you know, I possibly publishing in a different capacity, so magazine or newspaper journalism intrigued me. Although the grind of being a really good journalist, in terms of like the chasing down of the stories and the fact checking, which contrary to what our government will tell you, journalists actually do, and they do very well. I don't know that I would have been cut out for that. I'm not a grinder. My guess is I would have ended up in some either sports, in the sports realm, or in something sort of entrepreneurial. Not at, like, I'm not a starter, but I really like coming alongside people who are starting things and being a solutions guy, a problem solver, helping them develop strategy and how are we going to communicate about this and what's our core message and those kinds of things.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I could totally see you doing that.
But I would not have been the president. However, I don't think I have that in me.
Dude, how humble of you. Unlike, almost every other pastor, how humble of you. So, Pipe, do you happen to hear, like, the cat crying in the background?
Very, very faintly.
Studio?
It's faint enough that it sounds like a siren, like 4 blocks over.
Yeah, no, it's actually a cat in my office, and I don't know if we've addressed this on the podcast, but I actually got a new cat. So,
well, I know you had one. It was a few months ago. You had one that went missing.
Yeah. So that cat is no longer with us, but I actually about a month ago got a new cat. She's incredible. Her name's Jane, and she's currently trapped in my office, so she's crying. I'm gonna empower my son.
But if you let her out, she will then cry outside the door, because that's what cats do.
Exactly, man. Hang on one second.
Yep.
Hey, Maxim, can you let Jane out? Excellent. Thanks, buddy. Dude, sorry about that.
No worries.
But I want to give my podcasting audience a chance to celebrate my new pet acquisition.
Jane is in like Jane Austen?
Yeah, Jane is in oh man, so this is embarrassing. KK and I like the book and the movie Jane Eyre. And so this is a long-haired cat who's a girl, so KK named her Jane Hare. And so
I didn't know she was a dad joker. That's amazing.
Yeah, so saying that out loud while still being like, a straight man who coaches football, doing all those things together, it's quite a lot for me to pull off.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, the cat doesn't know its name and never will and won't come when you call it by name, so the name is just for your amusement.
Dude, that's absolutely true, and we love the cat. We're super thankful for her. We're excited that she's in our family. But back to the vocation thing, Pipe, and we're going on an hour here, so I'll let you go soon. What's your dream sports job? So as you look at the sports landscape, we talk about sports a lot in our other program. I know for myself, I've dreamed at various times of, being a player, a coach, or a GM in a certain context. Like, what's your dream sports job?
I would like to be like the Zach Lowe of the NFL.
Oh, interesting. So still sports media.
I think so. That said, I would also love to be a high school football coach.
Dude, really? Talk about that.
Well, for a couple reasons. One, I peaked. Like, I capped out at high school football. I probably could have joined the team at Wheaton and been the kind of guy who, if I worked really hard, maybe made the field like my senior year. But Wheaton is a really good football team. I played for a really bad high school team, and I didn't have it in me to put in 40 hours a week to be a college football player, so I stopped.
Yep.
And I had terrible coaches in high school. Like, they were terrible people who were terrible at football. So it was,
interesting.
Like, if they were one or the other, it would have been a much more enjoyable experience. So I look at it and I go, man, a decent coach would have made such a difference to me in terms of my love of the game, my development as a player, the success of our team. And I've worked with high schoolers enough over the years to know that they're frustrating as all get out, but the capacity that 14 to 18-year-olds have to learn, to get better, and the enjoyment that I get in watching something click for them, like when they get it. And then, so whether that's a pass rushing technique or, a theological concept, either one is cool. So high school coach would be intriguing. If I could make a living being like a defensive coordinator for a high school team, I'd be happy. I think I would really enjoy that.
Piper, let me put a job offer in front of you. Okay.
All right.
So this is sports history being made right here. I know I've mentioned on the podcast before that my kids go to a classical school, and being that it's a classical school, it exists to teach them Latin and crush all of our athletic dreams. And they have delivered on that. They've delivered on that promise in droves, in that the sports experience has been woeful and the academic experience has been good. But all of that to say, Piper, they haven't had a football program. But I am starting an 8-man full contact tackle football program here in the area for kids who go to the Augustine school, also for the kids in the homeschool community here. So if you want to make the commute from Nashville and be a part of our coaching staff, there's the official offer. So we can hammer out the particulars. There will be no money whatsoever, but I'll give you a whistle and a headset and a windbreaker and some very short polyester shorts.
If you pay me in baked goods and give me a visor, I'm in.
Dude, absolutely. I'm going to pay you in baked goods and visors. It'll be amazing. So we're going to be a visor program. Absolutely. That's my first purchase with the copious budget that I'm about to get. So
budget. That's a fun word. I wonder,
quote unquote budget.
Do you call it a budget if there's no money allocated for anything?
Dude, exactly. Yeah, I just air quote it. I air quote it, and then it's a budget, but it's a budget that I can joke around about. But no, man, I've coached high school football before, and it is everything that you described. It's so much fun. The kids aren't yet cynical and jaded, and they still dream big dreams. I mean, it's back to the excitement thing that we talked about.
Right.
I mean, I think there's no better moment than being a high school football player and playing on Friday night, and then Saturday morning you wake up late and you're all sore and a little bit beat up, but then you can flip on college football and just dream about it, or you can watch the NFL on Sunday and go, maybe I'll get there someday. And that's intoxicating. That's such a good feeling.
And I miss the Friday night lights. I live right by a local high school, so you can see the lights. I mean, when I open once it drops below 811 degrees outside and I can open my deck door in the evening for the pleasant breezes, I can hear the marching band. I can hear the crowd.
Oh,
it's
dude,
awesome.
That's magic.
And I miss it. And then the other thing is I gravitate towards the kind of the hard to reach kids.
Yeah.
Like the star quarterback doesn't interest me. Somebody else can coach the star quarterback. Sure. I like the troubled kid, the single parent home kid, the kid who's got potential but doesn't know how to reach it without help. And so, I mean, that's an aspect of coaching. I've done a little bit of coaching in the past, and those are the aspects of it that I enjoy a lot. Not to mention the watching the light bulb come on for kids. So
absolutely, man.
It would either be that, or the Zach Lowe thing is basically he's the most engaging basketball podcaster out there right now. He knows basketball inside and out, but he loves basketball inside and out, and that's what makes him so good. Is he can go real nerd deep on the technicalities of the game or strategies, but then he just loves watching basketball and being around basketball. And the NBA has a lot of guys like that. The NFL does not. The NFL has like meatheads who hate strategy and technicality,
analytics, and
they have
all that stuff.
They have like nerds.
Yeah.
And so there's nobody who really loves the game, who has a sense of humor, and who can break down like how Sean McVay sets up matchups that toast the middle linebacker. Like those are things, all of which I look at and go, if I got to spend 40 to 60 hours a week doing that, that sounds fun to me.
Absolutely, man. Watching Game Pass, watching the All 22, that would be a blast. That would be like a dream for sure. But I think back to what you said on coaching, man, it's so true. And it's why like these reformed weenies who twice a year write these, think pieces on the Gospel Coalition about how football's terrible. Like clearly they've never coached, and all the relational magic, all the chances for, ministry is probably a stretch. That probably nobilizes it too much because it's just something I love doing. But yeah, the race thing works so well in football. Just chances to be in community together and learn from each other. And man, all that is magic. And it's what keeps me coming back year after year as a coach. And even as a player.
I don't think calling it ministry nobilizes it. It might sort of sound a little more pious than you mean, but if you ran into a coach that you had from, say, the age of 9 years old on, you would still call that person coach.
Oh, most definitely. Until I die. You would remember
at least one or two interactions you had with them at a very personal level.
Yep.
Hopefully positive ones. The impacts that coaches have are deep, lasting, and profound. Now, I had a bunch of awful coaches, but they didn't negatively shape me because I had lots of good influences in my life too. But I think about my peers who didn't. They may have quit the sport because they had terrible coaches. They may have you don't know the influence. So I think ministry is not far off in terms of the significance of a coach.
I agree, man. And if you're doing it right, it really does look a lot like ministry, and it looks a lot like the stuff that these kind of entrepreneurial pastor types put into their like business plans when they're planning a church or talking about quote unquote leadership or whatever. It's really all the stuff that you get out of coaching, and that's what makes it magical. But Piper, speaking of magical, we have gone almost an hour on this program, and really appreciate this, man. Appreciate your answers. This has been the Barnabas Piper episode of the Happy Rant podcast. So if you're so inclined, run, don't walk to Amazon.com, our favorite little try-hard online bookseller. Search for Barnabas Piper, buy copies of his books, The Curious Christian and The Pastor's Kid, and we can look forward to this new proposal, Pipe. And being that it's the publishing industry, if you get a deal for it within the next 6 months or so, you can expect it on shelves like 3 to 5 years from now. So
yeah, if it hits
just
shelves,
around the corner,
if it hits shelves before early 2020, it would be an accelerated schedule, let's say. Absolutely, man, and that's just a glimpse of the excitement that we get to deal with in this fast-paced industry of ours. It really flies at you. You blink and it's over. But Pipe, this has been a blast. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you doing this episode. And until next time, Rachel the Held Evans. The Happy Rant is brought to you by Resonate Recordings. If you go to resonaterecordings.com, you can see the full range of services they offer. So if you're considering starting a podcast, they are the ones we recommend going with. Again, go to resonaterecordings.com to see their prices, to connect with them and ask any questions, and to see what they can do to help you launch, edit, master, and improve your podcast. Again, go to resonaterecordings.com to see what they can do to help you launch and improve your podcast.